All right, Grace.
Hi.
Grace, where are you from originally? Where'd you grow up?
I'm from San Diego, California. I've been there my entire life. So
And tell me about your family.
my mom passed away when I was 1 from lung cancer. And my birth father is not in my life anymore. He, when my mom passed away, my father's drug use got really bad, and it got to the point where it was by I was like 2, I think. I had already had CPS reports. When my mom had me, she tested positive for drugs, and so immediately I got removed from her and placed with my dad. And after a while, they were still living together and everything, but I was in his custody. And about when maybe 1.5, she had passed away. And as time got farther along, my dad started getting worse in his addiction. Like it was almost like he was a completely different person after she passed away. Meth was like the main cause of his issues that he had, but I think it was also just the blame of like losing my mom. And he started to get really aggressive. And I remember one time he had gotten so violent that we had gotten kicked out of our house that we lived in. When I was about 3, we got kicked out, and we were living on the streets for a while. We were trash can diving for the longest time. And I have like visual memory of that, which is weird because I was so young. There was one time where we were sitting in front of a 99-cent store at like 3 a.m, and some random person came by and decided to pick me up and start running with me, just running down the street. And if that person wouldn't have stopped and dropped me, I don't know what would have happened because he was so high, he didn't care. And eventually, after a while of being on the streets, we moved into a boathouse. And most of my memories there were sitting on a top deck, just like bawling my eyes out because I was so hungry and so overwhelmed. And what happened a lot of the time there was he would bring in prostitutes. A lot of the time he would go and find prostitutes and bring them there. And I remember just like covering my ears all the time, just covering my ears and just not wanting to hear this, not wanting to hear what was happening. But all the different types of abuse that he put towards me, which was mostly physical, there was sexual here and there, but it was mostly physical. And I ended up being in his custody till I was like 7 years old. So.
You went to school?
Yeah. Not regularly. I had to keep switching schools because I was between like CPS and foster houses and Polinsky a lot of the time. So I would switch schools, but I only missed, I got held back for 2 grades. I think it was like 2nd and 3rd, I think, but I got held back. So, and ended up catching up when I was a little older by moving up grades because I was doing so well in school.
And how old are you now?
I turned 21 in a week.
So you're still young.
Yeah.
But you figured out at some point that you have borderline personality disorder?
Yeah. I was 17, I think, and I started noticing that I've always had this issue with relationships, whether it be dating, friends, whatever, that I can't keep a solid relationship. It would always turn into, whether it was fighting or distance or anything like that, I couldn't maintain loving someone really close. From a distance, it's okay, but very closely, it wouldn't happen. So I finally went to a psychiatrist and started talking to them, and they diagnosed me with BPD, ADHD, and depression. Which, I mean, is really common with people that have BPD. They don't usually just have one diagnosis, and there's a bunch of factors into it. But I think the older you get, the more you kind of discover from the issues that you have. And that's personally what's happened with me. So.
What kind of things have you been through? Because of this?
I think I gravitate towards people that are not good for me. I think that's kind of the overall thing. I think that I try and find people and fix them because I can't fix myself. And I have no example of like what a good, stable relationship is. So it takes a lot of time to understand someone for me. And I think I'm attracted to people who can represent my past, whether it be abuse or just anger issues, violence, and it's because it's comfortable for me. It's not healthy, but it's more comfortable than finding someone and just understanding immediately, oh, they're going to be good to you. They're going to love you because they can, and they want to. And I've never understood that. That's probably one of the harder things for me, is I just don't understand that people can love you and there doesn't have to be repercussions to it.
You've been in love before?
Yeah. That's something about me, is I love people deeply, but because of my BPD, it causes me to split a lot of the time, which means I can love them 100%, feel on top of the world, and then I notice, like, as soon as they do one thing or something said, it immediately turns to, I hate this person. I don't want to be around this person, and I don't like that. I want to be able to love somebody unconditionally and love them even if they make mistakes. But because of how intensely I feel emotion, I'm not able to provide that at this time. Maybe it will get better, but it's hard.
And I would think it'd be hard to find a partner who understands that behavior.
Yeah, nobody understands, but I don't blame anyone. I don't blame my father. I don't blame anybody who's hurt me, because people can only love to the extent that they've been taught. And you can't expect somebody to love someone with all these issues when maybe they had completely different issues growing up, or none at all. They're never going to get why little things make you mad, or why I could wake up one morning and just be angry for no reason. And sometimes I feel really bad because I'll snap a lot of the time, like the littlest things, and I'll just ruin the rest of my day. But it's something I'm learning to kind of get a grasp on.
Are there any medications? I don't think there
There's nothing that treats BPD directly. It's like treating the symptoms. Like a lot of people with depression take Lexapro. I tried that and it made me feel like a zombie. So they put me on something with a higher dosage, something to increase serotonin, because that's a really common thing in people with BPD, is that they don't have the right levels of serotonin in their brain. But there's nothing that treats it directly, unfortunately.
Have there ever been times where things have improved for you? Or is it just, it's always with you?
It's like having an angel and a devil on your shoulder. The angel, you really, really want to be that person, and you really want to be that person and like be good, but it's constantly in the back of my mind. It's constantly there where it's like, you should get mad, you should feel sad, like all the time. But I'd say the best times for me is when I'm alone, because there's nothing that can make me feel like something's wrong if I'm by myself besides my own head. And that's something I live in every day. Even if I can't control it or balance it, I can try and improve it with time. So.
What's been the worst thing you've gone through because of this?
I would say losing my relationship with my adoptive mom, like losing it for a period of time, because I felt when I was like 15, I ran away from home for like 2 months and I blocked her number, and I just, out of nowhere, I just packed my things and I left because I had my, 15, 16, I had my license, I had a car, and I packed my stuff and I just left. I didn't tell her anything, blocked her on everything, didn't tell her nothing.
Did she deserve that?
No. It's not her fault, it was mine. She's like my best friend. But at the time and for a few years after, it was almost like living in a house with a stranger because we didn't talk. Because I eventually did go back. But I did that because I felt unwanted. It wasn't anything she did. I was so in my head that I didn't feel loved, but I was loved. And I think that's one of the hardest parts of having this disorder is you get so in your head that you can't even see reality sometimes. There can be a room full of people, and if one person says something or does something, it can make you think everyone in the room hates you. And it's hard. It's hard. My cousin, my mom's sister's daughter, like blood cousin, had BPD as well. And she got the other aspect of it where she fell into drugs very heavily. And she passed away when she was 16 from a heroin overdose. And the last thing that she wrote a big letter to everyone, and the last thing she said in it that resonates with me every single day is, I wish you could see how I am in my head so you would understand why I didn't want to be here. And I think now getting older, I'm starting to see exactly that. You're so in your head, you can't even live your life.
This was your cousin who is a blood relative?
She's a blood relative,
yes.
Yeah.
Right. So it could have been something you inherited?
Probably. I'd say so. My mom was the same kind of pattern where she would jump from things. She'd jump from partners, she'd jump from jobs. And it's so common when you have certain issues dealing with BPD to want to just be super indecisive. So like she could have the best job in the world. She actually was working as she was one of the head techs at a dealership working on cars. And she was making really good money. That was right before she got pregnant with me. She was making really, really good money. And I remember when I was told the story, one day she just never went back and chose to lose her house, lose her car, lose everything just because. And there was no reasoning, no rhyme behind it. And I think that's a big part of why I have it, because I think she had it and no one took enough time to care to ask why she had the issue she did, you know. Mental health's more discussed now in the world we live in. It's more prevalent, it's more cared for, but it's still not understood. And if you are, whatever you have, whatever issues you have or trauma, they'll never understand if they didn't live it. They can have empathy, but they don't understand. And they never will.
BPD's got to be very difficult for your family and friends and relationships.
Yeah. My mom actually doesn't even know I'm diagnosed. I choose not to tell her. Not because I don't want her to know, but I just don't want her to have the stress of being like, oh, something's wrong with my child. Like, A lot of parents are like that.
It would help you. It would help explain your behavior
Yeah.
in her mind.
Yeah, it probably would, because I'm very, I'll just react on anything I want to do. Like, if I want to go shopping and buy $300 worth of clothes, but I know I have bills to pay, I'll still do it. If I want to impulsively just like go out and trade in my car and buy a new one, I've done that twice already. I'll have a car for like 3 months, and then I'll just be like, and then just go and get into a bigger car payment or put myself more in debt, or very impulsive. And I think that does affect people around me. It sucks.
What are you afraid of? What do you worry about?
I think I'm most afraid of ending up alone, like in every aspect, just because I'm a very hard person to deal with. I love people. I really do. I love people like no other. But when I love you, it's easier for me to show you my bad side. And not necessarily bad, but my problems. Like, if I have a lot of feeling for you, it comes out because I'm so scared of losing you. I think that's my biggest fear, is I just don't want to be left so alone because nobody can handle me. And the only way I can fix that is try and work on myself, I think.
So your behavior will push your partner away, even
Everyone
though
away.
that's the last thing that you want.
Yeah, like I've had friends, like one of my best friends from high school. He, I think we were so close. We were very close, and he was always right there for me. And I think my choices of jumping from relationships and jumping from really good contact and talking really closely to completely shutting him out. He was one of my best friends, and I think he just got tired of it.
Do your friends understand that you're like this and work with you, or tolerate it, or just help you ride it out?
The thing is, I feel like that's the hardest part, is I don't feel like anybody is really my friend. So I choose to not talk about it. Feeling like you're not wanted is so common for me that I don't choose to get really close with people. So my acquaintances and people that I would consider friends don't even, like, them watching this is going to be the first they've heard probably about any of it.
So it's almost like your BPD works against you and almost sabotages your relationships in your life.
Yeah. It's
even though you're trying to be a better friend, a better partner, better.
It's almost
daughter.
like it's a whole different person. Like, I'm Grace, and this person in my head that does all the negative and like does sabotage things. I hate that person, and it causes me to hate myself.
It's like having a devil on your shoulder.
Yeah. Another, like, I think the biggest struggle besides relationships with me is personal image, like self-image, and just insecurity. Like, I developed a pretty severe eating disorder like 2 years ago. And after about 6 months, I started losing weight because of it. And in a year and a half, I lost 92 pounds.
92?
Yeah, 92 pounds.
Wow.
I was very, very unhappy and it doesn't matter. Like, it felt like something I could control about myself, because my head I can't control, so I could control the physical aspect. But it didn't help, because even now, going down all that weight, losing all that weight, I'm here and I'm not happy. I think the biggest problem is, no matter what I see in the mirror, I'm never going to be happy with. And that's one of the harder things, I think.
What emotions what are most common for you? Is it anger? Is it depression? Anxiety?
Anxiety, I would say, is the most common all day long. Like, all day long. and I get shaken up pretty easy by things. But it's more about things that aren't happening. Like, I think so much that I'm anxious about something that's going to happen a week from now, or it might not even happen. And I get angry really fast. Anger, and it's explosive anger. It's not like silent treatment, stuff like that. I just blow up. And I'm so in my head that the person sitting next to me, whoever it is, won't even know that there's anything wrong until I blow up.
And then they just think you're crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. It's something I've gotten better at, though. I've gotten better at like communicating and saying, hey, this is not comfortable for me, or this is gonna make me a little upset. And I don't expect people, it's no one's responsibility to make me feel comfortable. But I just feel if someone does love you, they can be understanding. But my issues are no one else's responsibility. So.
Do you feel helpless against this?
Against this issue, yeah. Like against my own head, I feel like I can't control my thoughts and I can't control my actions. But on the other end of that, in a positive light, I do feel like I could, it's pushed me to be more just go for it, go get her kind of thing. Like, I've always worked really hard. I've been working since I was like 15.
You've had jobs?
Yeah. I've been working since I was.
You've been able to hold jobs?
Huh?
You've been able to hold the jobs?
Yes, but after a certain amount of time, I'll just get tired of it. I'll just be like, not interested, and I'll go into the same field. Like I'm a mechanic. I'm ASE certified. I've built and sold cars, and that's my passion. And I'll stay in the industry. And currently, like I'm a manager in part sales because I'm trying to buy my own shop. But it's like I'll jump from like different parts stores and like different dealerships, and it's not holding stability for me. I'm really bad at keeping stability because it gets so boring to me. But it does push me to go for what I want.
Are there positive aspects to this, to BPD?
I think that would just be the main one, is like, and I think it's different for everybody, but for me, that jumping from thing to thing it's bad in some aspects, but it's good if you want to get a bunch of different experiences and a bunch of different work fields and work areas. I think that's a good thing. I think a positive is that I do love people really deeply too. I love, like I said, I think love comes a lot stronger when you're way more terrified of losing the thing you love, but it can be smothering.
If you could have chosen at birth to either have BPD or not, it seems like you were probably born with it, would you have chosen to not have it?
I wouldn't wish it on anybody, because you can be happy, but it's so up and down. I don't think I've ever had a week at least in the past few years, where a week seems so long to go without breaking down. Just getting overwhelmed and breaking down. And it tears you apart. And you still got to get up. You still got to go to work. You still have to do normal people things, but you don't feel normal.
And drugs are not part of your life?
No, I mean, like, weed it's everywhere. I mean, I'll smoke here and there, but I don't do anything like that. It's nothing crazy. I don't do anything crazy. I've tried stuff, but I think that might be another positive of BPD, is that I'll try it, get bored with it, and not do it again. So it's kind of, that's one positive, I think.
But you feel like this is something you were born with. It wasn't because of your rough childhood, losing your mom A dad on drugs?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I mean, because my mom had the same characteristics and patterns that I start to see now, possibly I might have been born with it, but also I think to the severity I have it, it could have been a little bit manipulated and increased by my past.
The stress that you were going through as a young child, probably.
Yeah, and when you're young, and like just for me personally, if you've been, like, I've been molested as a child. I've had numerous adults that I trusted a lot, break my heart and break my trust. And in all different aspects, just up and disappear and just do things that adults should know will ruin someone when they get older. But I mean, ultimately, I think it's something I was born with and I need to learn to live with, because I know that up to like 10% of people with BPD, I've done a lot of research on it just to try and understand my own head. And like up to 10% of people diagnosed with BPD commit suicide. And I understand that. I do. I've attempted, but I couldn't go through with it just because I love life as much as I do. I do love life. I just don't love myself. So I think it's something I really want to learn to deal with and not give up. Because a lot of people, it's so hard that they feel like they have to give up, and it's a sad thing.
What would you say is the most important lesson you've learned from all of this?
It's a lot easier to let things go than to let them eat you. Because especially with me, I'll have something in my head and it will just like churn and churn until I can't handle it. I think letting things go and forgiving people for things that weren't ultimately their fault is huge.
All right, Grace. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Yeah.
And I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.